I'd like to call your attention here to our lovely Redlands Coast logo, which you see up front there. We're co-branded now, Redlands Coast and Redland City Council. And coincidentally, for a GIS conference, I think the Redlands Coast logo is remarkably cartographic. I had nothing to do with that, but we'll take it. It's a really good little logo, and the Redlands is an absolute jewel in southeast Queensland. Our little council is about 150,000 residents. We've got about 75,000 rateable properties. The Southern Moreton Bay Islands and North Stradbroke Island, which are really fabulous tourist destinations and wonderful little communities in their own right. The economy is very much tourism friendly, and there's a little bit of a local industry. We've been Esri customers for a long time. I've got there's a lot of friends out here in the room, a lot of Esri friends, and a lot of ex-defence friends, because I used to be in the army. Applaud now if you're my friend. Thank you. I like to get my applause up front just in case it all goes wrong and I've got to flee. So, and I've got this because I like to present a moving target, because I know who some of you are. So, okay, we went into a vision roadmap back at the end of 2015. I wrote a little document, little 7-page document about what we wanted to do with our GIS. We had a very much traditional architecture, geodatabases, a lot of files-based stuff, a lot of desktop, and a lot of little walk-around devices with ArcPad and that sort of thing. But it really didn't cogently come together. We had WebGIS with ReadyMap, which was an in-house developed front end, and we started a vision roadmap, and we engaged Esri Australia at that point to write us a spatial strategy. Now, the person who showed up at the time was Peter Gill. He did a fabulous job, and the real winner for us was that we walked Peter around the business. Right? We got 32 business lines in council. I think we hit the top 15 GIS customers, 15 business lines. Peter came with us and had 15 separate conversations, and out of that came a strategy which was a marriage of the platform that Esri was presenting to us and the desires of the business, the things that were important for people, for them to do. Because in the end, when somebody walks through my door, I no longer ask them, what do you want? I simply ask them, what are you trying to do? Because the answer to that question drives what it is that we present them with. And so, as we go through this, we will see a few little examples of things that we just popped up in response to that question, what are you trying to do? With that business engagement and our transformation project that arrived out of that, we had a few big moving parts. Just prior to our GIS transformation, we'd done a BI project. So we had a data warehouse, and that was a huge data resource to draw upon for our GIS as well. And we had to plan a project for a transformation of this GIS into essentially a portal platform. And we looked around the region, and we noted that there weren't a lot of people around the region who had made that jump. And so we planned this project to start off with a traditional waterfall project with milestones, with a budget. We had about $500,000. And then we went through putting this portal in, and then we switched to an agile methodology, right? So we raised some infrastructure, we installed some software, we went through a project plan, and we arrived with a capability. And then we switched to an agile methodology where we got people through the door and said, okay, what are you trying to do? What do we now do? Just wanted to introduce you quickly to the architecture. Technical people, hands in the air. Anybody who's, yep. So when you look at this, this is what our site looks like behind the scenes. You know, we have a series of geodatabases, standard geodatabases, a staging geodatabase and a publishing geodatabase. We are hauling information out of other business systems, and the box that says other business systems includes the enterprise data warehouse. Those are rich sources of data that get joined to our managed geodata. The GIS pub database, we join that together and we publish that data to materialised feature classes, which are really refreshable product data that's going out to the business. Right, some 700 feature classes in all, in the end, in GIS pub. GIS PTL I'll leave alone for a little moment. We've got a lot of desktop clients running automations which push that geodata out into map services running on one of two ArcGIS server sites. The one marked Site 2 I'll treat first. It's just a 4-core server site with our primary map services on it. These are our consumables. Right? We republish these on a 24-hour, sometimes on a twice-a-week basis. And so we push our data out to those, and we push the data out copied and local, and it runs fast and it's disposable. Right? So that performs extremely well for us. And it's also very robust, because if anything goes wrong with the network or with our connection to the geodatabase, all of our systems don't fall over. We do the same out into the DMZ, and the services that are supplied to the public run out of that. They're very fast and they're very easy to restore, and they're very easy to stand back up again if something goes wrong, which I'm happy to say it really doesn't. We installed the portal. We installed the portal originally at 10.4.1, and in the first year of the project we upgraded the portal to 10.5.1, where we presently are, and our experience with that has been very good. The Fed hangs off of that, the federated server. Anything to do with managed data, we're using data store on the Fed server as a data store. We decided that in our maturity model, that anything which was a little bit experimental, anything which was a little bit user-defined, maybe short cycle, disposable jobs, we put in the data store, right? Because the data store can get very big very quickly, and we decided that our best way of limiting that was just to keep it for those immature products. Anything that proved to be popular or successful got put into, we put down into the portal geodatabase, that GIS PTL that you see down the bottom, right, where that's a registered geodatabase, proper SDE geodatabase in SQL Server. And so any process that matures, we'll sync that down into there and run it out of the geodatabase, where we can get at the data easily and join it onto other data and make other things out of it. Right? It's flexible for us, and it means that in the event of for change control, we don't have to turn everything off to affect a change. We've got decoupling in between those elements. And then all of the users out in front of the portal are really completely abstracted from any of that complexity.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. Back in 2016, we had our training in ArcGIS Online, and the app that I'm just about to speak to you about quite literally landed on our desks a day or two after we'd finished our ArcGIS Online training. Someone actually walked into my desk, and asked for a whole heap of AO-sized maps covering our city, showing a fire hydrant approximately every 5 millimetres on the map. When we asked why they wanted this, it was for an inspection program on the hydrants. So realising that ArcGIS Online could give us something a lot more capable, we used this as an opportunity to develop an app that basically showed, simplifying it right down, 15,000 red dots in a collector app to inspect. You basically click on a red dot and change it to green. One of the things we've found with our app development is, for guys in the field, visual cues are important. A red dot means they've got to look at it. When you go and change an attribute through the collector interface here, so you'll see I've got a field here called inspection status. If you actually click on that, you'll get a drop-down box presented with inspected or not inspected. The other bits and pieces that we can do in that app through the collector pop-up is add in some maintenance details on that item. But in terms of robustly enabling a number of different operators to use a number of different devices and monitor who's looked at this hydrant, who hasn't looked at these, it was a great little tool. And that was our very first app. Over to you now, Ian.
There was a very short run job came up from animal management. The original request was for us to produce a series of inspection maps and to assist them with the data upload and download for their spreadsheet-based field inspection regime. What we saw was the immediate possibility of using the new platform to deliver them something quite different. And harking back to that architecture diagram before, with spatial views, running out of other systems, one of the advantages of having the GIS hooked up through the data warehouse in the property system was that we were able to map a lot of the animal registrations onto land, to expose the cadastre, the registered animal information in our DMZ in a secure web service, and then consume that from ArcGIS Online from that web service, and then just put the inspection layer over the top of that in ArcGIS Online. So there wasn't any privacy-sensitive information in ArcGIS Online. That was all in our secure service, and the inspectors were operating against these just the inspections layer. And so what they would do is there were two inspectors, contract inspectors, walking around the streets. They could see the priority areas which had been defined for them as a layer. They knew that they could stay inside those priority areas because that was what they were sent out to do. They could deconflict their work amongst them. They could communicate easily with the managers back in animal management who were watching the progress of the work pretty much in real time. And they would tap on those properties, inspect them, mark them as inspected or mark them as having a breach. And then if there was in fact something to report, this would kick into a Survey 123 app. And so the Survey 123 app would record the particulars of the breach, and we would use, in the construction of that URL, was the property number, the address, and some of the other details from the secure service. And so you'd come up with a pre-populated form, and then the rest of the particulars of the form would go and be filled out about what the nature of the breach was, and that data in ArcGIS Online, still completely depersonalised and only identifiable by the primary key of the property, was then downloaded by the animal management staff in the office, and they created the breaches in the property system as they normally would. Right, so it was a semi-automated system, but the point was that we were able to stand it up in a very, very short amount of time, and that was extremely useful. They ended up completing their entire animal survey inside of 2 weeks, and I believe the last time they did it, it took them 6 weeks.
one of the really cool things with this particular app was we're able to use the pop-up in collector to fire off survey 123, but passing through parameters from the actual mapping data into the survey 123 form. So if you look up on the screen there, we've clicked on a property number, but the property number and the street address have automatically been pre-populated from the mapping data straight into the survey 123 form. That's been used by URL parameters, and I'll chat a little bit more about URL parameters in another app down the track, but URL parameters can really make your life easy when you're talking between different systems and you're pulling data into survey 123 forms. It's very, very simple.
Yep, so that's just a little bit more of the workflow. The workflow is context sensitive as well. There's some logic in there depending on what choices you make. That form will adapt. Back in the office, we made use of the ops dashboard for the managers who were watching the flow of the flow of the inspections, and we're able to get some performance data on the inspectors, and also be able to report on progress pretty much before anybody came back to the office. So that proved to be extremely popular from a management point of view, and from the point of view of advertising and presenting the capability.
Traffic management. Someone walked to my desk one day with about a dozen CSV files, each of them containing about 700,000 records or more, detailing a count of Bluetooth devices passing through between Bluetooth counters that main roads place at strategic locations on our road network. And he said, "What can you do with this?" And I went, I don't know, I'm going to have to go away and think about this. Recognising that we're not actually counting traffic, we're actually counting a subset of the traffic where each count is of a Bluetooth device passing at a certain intersection. Once I got my head around the sort of metric that we needed to obtain from that, what we could obtain was an indication of vehicle speed, because we know the distance between each Bluetooth counter and we know the time taken from the Bluetooth counters. So what I did was I threw all those CSV files at the BI team to do an ETL, and as part of that ETL from those CSV files, I also cooked in a URL for the web map that I wanted to use. The key to the success of delivering this information was going to be simplicity. People would simply want to click on a route and have a pop-up appear, and they'd either want to display inbound speed or outbound speed. And when they did that, through the pop-up, you'd actually link to our BI report here that shows some thematic heat mapping where, simplifying it right down, red means the speed is quite bad. So on one axis here in this heat map, you've got our times ranging from midnight to 11 p.m, and across the x-axis, you have the different Bluetooth devices that it's passed between. In this particular chart here, you can see that at a certain period, I think it's about 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, and 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, one part of this route across 4 Bluetooth counters, the speed was less than 40 kilometres an hour. Yet the Bluetooth counters either side of that at the same times, the speed was 50, 55. Once again, using mapping to explain or to show why, to show where, we can help people answer the question of why. So using the integration from the BI, down in the right-hand side here, I've got a few links that once again are simple hyperlinks in the BI report that use URL parameters to jump back to a portal map that basically zooms in on the location or that part of the route where those 2 Bluetooth counters are, and you can then turn on some aerial photography. Why is this particular section of the route a little slow? We can see 2 traffic lights, but then we can see a roundabout right in the middle of that route. And as it so happens, I can also see a school off one of these side roads coming from the roundabout. So, and trying to answer another question, if we had a theory that the congestion was because of school traffic, what I did was then flick onto the monthly indicative speeds in the BI report for December. Now, December is school holidays, and there was no congestion in the December holidays. So we all know there's traffic congestion, but this was a nice little app that let us have some facts and figures to support the theory that we need to do something around this area. Once again, showing where so that people can answer why.
Okay, last one. We've got. Now, I did mention at the start that the project all up was about $500,000. I think was our budget in the initial part. The mowing officers manage a lot of contracts around the city. There were 3 or 4 main schedules of contracts, and there were internal mowers as well, mowing staff as well. Now, when the mowing teams first came to us, the problem was how do we map out what all of our mowing commitments are off of all of these schedules? And we went through that whole data production and spatialising of their schedules. And what fell out of that was that there was massive duplication between schedules. And as this progressed and we went through this visualising in a portal app, there was editable portal apps so that they could start to manage their own data. And by the time they'd gone through and rationalised these data sets, what fell out of the mowing project was a $500,000 saving for council. The mowing team paid for my project. So that's awesome. So that was one little thing that came out of the business that demonstrated what we could possibly do for the business by asking the question, what are you trying to do, not what do you want?
Next app we developed was for cemeteries.
I lied. Wasn't the last one.
I'll just quickly skim through this one. We had a lot of legacy cemetery data, but we didn't know anything being able to answer the question of where people were. And we're talking about the people that had passed. So we came up with a little portal app that basically, simplifying it right down, lets the end user, the cemetery people, move a dot to a location on the aerial photography where a particular site is. At the back end, however, that dot is also having information attached to it from spatial views from our property and rating module where the cemetery information lies. And that's been a great little project. It's still ongoing, but once again, it puts GIS capabilities through a web browser to non-GIS people just to simply put data where they want it rather than having to sit beside a specialist GIS officer to put the dots where they need to.
Yeah, ultimately with this one too, what we intend to do is to put this out as a service to the public. So on a mobile device, they can use that to position themselves in our cemetery facilities and find the things that they're looking for. So those were a few little examples, but when we're talking about, we took an agile methodology. You know, we started with a little list of things that we thought we were going to do for the business, and after having conversations with the business, they started telling us in very creative ways what it was that they would like to do. And as I run down that list there, you know, there's a lot of us rolling out very, very similar tricks to the ones we used in those initial 4 apps. You know, fire management was a huge one. There was a lot of activity on Russell Island with the fires, a lot of collaboration with Queensland, with QFES, and to the extent that we're now sharing map services with them at the service layer level. So a lot of really good things has come out of this project for us, and we think that an awful lot more is going to come out of it in the future.